Okay, how we do this, huh? Start sharing.
Y'all lighting good?
Yeah. Camera. Oh, Lord. I can't see. You want to start talking to your followers? Why?
Hey, what's up, y'all? Hey, it's your boy Davos Hoso Zulu with Miss Gabrielle Dawn. We still setting up on Facebook. Give us like 2 seconds.
Nah, baby, you gonna need longer.
All right, 2 minutes.
Okay, let's try this again. Live. What are things? Preview. Okay. Okay, I can't see the bottom of that.
Nobody's on server.
You need my phone door?
Yeah.
Hey, what I need y'all to do is go ahead and start getting some questions. Pay attention, get these comments together. We're gonna answer all this.
Take the stream. Okay.
So while we're still getting set up on Facebook, just the topics we're gonna be going over is just basically getting our people more enthusiastic about our history and our culture, self-education, and post-traumatic slave syndrome. So whatever questions you may have about that, whatever comments you may have, I'll be going over that, or we'll be going over that. So just get y'all stuff together and we'll answer your questions.
Okay, I'm just gonna go live on that because I don't know what's going on with the computer. Okay.
That's what I got a battery pack.
Yeah.
You need a battery pack?
No, mine is good.
Mine should be, mine's a 99. Or it was a 99.
Okay, there we go. No. What is this? Starting live. Okay. All right. Here we go. We were experiencing some technical difficulties, but we are back. Okay. So, you out of the frame. So, yeah. Or maybe if you move your chair.
So you making things too easy.
Okay.
All right.
So, all right. So for everybody that's going to be joining on Facebook, I guess I'll go ahead and go over what we will be talking about briefly. So we're going to be talking about how post-traumatic slave syndrome affects us still today. Getting our people enthusiastic about our history, as well as the importance of self-education and re-educating ourselves about our history and who we were before, during, and now after colonization. So I'll let you take the floor.
All right. I mean, to begin, we're talking about our history and our culture. I think the question is, how do we get to a point to where Black people are not interested in our culture, not interested in our history, and how do we get them more involved? I think is the big question with that.
I think like some of the big things, like we were talking about before, that something I think that inspires other people to, I guess, find their way into their history is to find things that interest you. What are things that interest? Oh yeah, let's make sure we talk
Yeah,
to
I
each
got
other.
you. I got you.
But find things that interest you about your history. What are things that you're interested in just in your day to day? Somebody was telling me how to get their spouse involved more in their culture. And I was explaining to them, okay, what are things that he's interested in? He's interested in music. Look at where the original string instruments started from. Look at what music was originally for. It was for healing in ancient African science. And so it's a lot of things, because I think our history is so vast and rich that it really can be a rabbit hole. So it's kind of like, you got to get your foot in the door some way, somehow. And I think the best way to do that is through your interests. What interests you?
Yeah, I mean, I also think that if black people, if they're somewhat interested, maybe look into getting them more of a mentor. Maybe find somebody that they that, like the person that came in and talked to you about getting their spouse more involved into their culture. Maybe find a mentor and try and talk to them and see where they basically can start. And that's like the main question everybody asks when they come and talk to me. I'm pretty sure with you also, it's like, where do they start at?
Yeah.
So let's say if someone is out the blue, I mean, when they I think when people see us, me and you, out on the street, they're gonna know we're more pro-black and we're more for our culture. And a lot of people kind of has come to me and asked me, like, where did it start at? So what do you think will be an appropriate answer for someone you don't know anything about? They don't have any idea what they like. What would you tell them?
I would say as well, something we should do is, even if we look at our most recent history, and then you can kind of backtrack. I think a lot of people, a lot of African people born in the diaspora, I think we shy away and I think this is kind of more new. I think a lot of times we shy away from our history as far as, during the transatlantic slave trade, because it does have such a shameful connotation, because we were at some point conquered. And then they don't talk about the slave rebellions and the different things like that, the Seminole Warrior, all these other things. They're just now talking about the Nat Turner rebellion.
Right.
They don't talk about how Haiti was, going and freeing people in South Africa, South America. So they don't talk about those things. So I think a lot of times we kind of shy away from those things, and we only want to see, the most glamorous and I guess glorified parts of our history that has been showcased. For instance, like ancient Kemetic history. So I think that if it's somebody that doesn't know, too much about our history, I would say start there, and then let's backtrack and honor each part, honor all of those parts, because they are all a part of your history. Your history is so rich. And you're gonna go through phases of being, experiencing hurt. You're gonna go through phases of being excited, enthusiastic, happy, sad, angry. You're gonna go through all of that. I feel like as much as I read, as much as I study, I go through that all of the time. Even I feel like day to day sometimes I experience that as I'm reading about, my ancestors' conquests and even our downfalls. So we have to learn to honor all of our history.
Right. Yeah. Even when I read books, I get very angry sometimes. I mean, if I read too many books that make me angry, I have to kind of take a break.
Yeah.
And read some crazy off topic.
Yeah.
To get back and reset, jump right back into it.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, I guess. One thing, I think also, it kind of starts with the children. I think it's always about the kids. So to help get our culture back into liking, loving their history, knowing their history, want to know their history, I think it kind of starts with the kids.
Agree.
So with my kids, I got them. I teach them small things. I started out when they were young, very, very young, with the Pan-African flag. Let them know what the red, black, and green stand for. And that gives them a sense of pride, because now they have a symbol, a flag to represent, and not try to identify with a culture or a race or a country that's not for them, or that doesn't represent them. Because when you look at the American flag, you look at Uncle Sam, you look at Miss America, you don't see us. So when you look at the Pan-African flag, you look at the red, black, and green, you're going to see us. You see a strong black man, strong black woman, standing in. I think it kind of starts with the kids.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I think with history, a lot of our people are not interested in our history because we don't see our image reflected in it in a positive or enriching light. You don't see the contributions that African people have made globally to work. African history is world history. See, but they don't tell you that.
Mm.
So because we don't know that, we have no pride in
Right.
our history outside of, and even like I say, if all you know is, our history on even on our continent, the U.S., that's not, yes, we've overcome so many things and we have so much tenacity and we're so resilient, but what outside of that have we contributed? And we contributed far more. So I think one thing with the children, like growing up, I grew up in a very pro-black home. My father was putting us up on all of this at a very young age. So for me, I think that I always had just a strong sense of ethnic pride and a strong sense of self and cultural identity because of that. And some of the things he started me off with was like autobiography of Malcolm X. My father, I was telling my friends, like my dad gave me a book on the Klan when I was like 9 years old. Like, all these different things. And some people I think may feel like, oh, that's extreme for a 9-year-old. But, and my father gave me a book on the Rosewood Massacre, very young.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like these were things that I was reading and engaging with, as well as other things, that I was interested in at those ages as well. But I think that, yeah, you're definitely right. It starts with the kids, and we have to start showing, even with a New Chosen Image group. That's why I post so frequently about our history and even the images. I want people to see that that there was so much before our history was interrupted.
Right.
And so because of that, I feel like people are more keen to be excited. Like, oh, okay, now what else can I learn? Who is this person?
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly. So Chancey Nova said, what about researching family tree? And we just kind of talked about that. You like to talk about that?
Yeah, so one of our friends was sharing with us how he's researching his family tree. And I think that is that's so inspiring. That's something that I definitely want to do myself. But I think that in and of itself will give you like an even greater sense of self and sense of identity as a man or a woman, to know like this is directly where I come from, as well as it's a good entry point into learning more about your history in general, because now you're learning about your family ties and who you were and who your family was and all of that. So I think that has could be really big.
Yeah, I agree. One thing that my family, what we do during Kwanzaa is for day one, Umoja, we for unity, we talk about the family tree. So basically we sit there with them and we start from as far back as we can go, as far as like pictures too, and we just build it and let them see exactly where they came from. And I think that helps them, because like I said, once you're going to know where you're going if you know where you're coming from.
Right.
And once they see where we came from, they can kind of have more of a sense of pride, more of a sense of unity, to see exactly where they came from, and sort of not the bullshit, but see how we rose up from what we had and what little we had into where we at right now.
Right.
So it won't be so selfish and take things for granted. So I think that helps out a lot with them. Especially during like I said, with Kwanzaa and the children being young as they are right now, and that'll give them something to like I said, stand for and be proud of once they get older. Because I think it is proven that once a child is not trying to identify with a different race, they perform better in school and life in general, because they have other things to focus on versus sitting there trying to
find
be
themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And I feel like that's something that so many of our kids go through. Even growing up, I would see so many black children that were trying to identify with all. And don't get me wrong, be able to relate and find beauty and appreciation in all cultures and in all whatevers. That's great. That's beautiful. You should be able to do that. But you should first be able to look at yourself and love yourself and appreciate yourself and what you and your people have contributed to the world before you can go out and seeking those things with other people, because then it's kind of like you're running after and behind something that wasn't created and meant for you.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of our children and people have been trying to fit the mold that was not created for us. And I say that all the time. It's like, and that's why so many different things do not work for us. So many different religions don't work for you because certain things were not created for you. So many different things in your diet do not work for you because you were not meant to eat like maybe the dominant society eats. There were things that you had in your native land that they did not have, and vice versa. So there's just some things black people don't have no business doing, in my opinion. You find appreciation in it. You know, but let it be an appreciation.
Right.
You know, so for sure.
Cool. I mean, so to go back to helping our people get more enthusiastic with our history.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about maybe revising our vision of Black history? Maybe pushing it out on a different way than what we have been. So, when I talk to people, I kind of throw books at them, tell them they need to read this, read that, tell them to watch this, watch that. Is this another way you think we can come at this to try to help them be more open-minded and want to learn it?
So my dear friend the other day was telling me I would make a statement about like are people not reading enough? And she told me, she corrected me in love and told me that the way that I was putting it, you know, maybe not be so nice and so well received. So it's like, you know, I took that, and I think that sometimes it's like, especially when you're on the other end of it, you're somebody who's constantly reading or somebody who grew up in it, and you know, so it's for you, it's just whatever. So I think sometimes if we throw books at people and we tell them, well, you need to watch this, you need to check this source, you need to do this, I think a lot of times that can become intimidating, and then it can become overwhelming. So I think certain things, for even if we have more round table discussions, even if we go live more, and even with the Facebook group that we have, and even with your Instagram feed, posting these different things, posting this knowledge. Now the thing of it is as people are posting, as people are speaking this and sowing these seeds into you, our people have to take on the responsibility of continuing to water and nurture those seeds. So if you see something that interests you, you see something that you did not know, that is your responsibility to carry it out. Now, a lot of times I feel like, you know, people, we don't want to force feed people. I know that I don't. I'm just going to tell it to you how I tell it to you. I'll draft some sources at the end of it. What you do with it after that is up to you. But I think that that's one of the things we can maybe start doing more. And I think a lot of times, from what I see, a lot of these conscious pages or woke pages don't do things in love and in light.
Right.
You know, I think a lot of times we're going to beat somebody over the head with facts. We don't care how you feel about it. It is what it is. And I'm just so elevated and you are beneath me. It's a vibe that I get from a lot of these woke pages and a lot of these people who, to be quite frank, have just now kind of come into their consciousness, which for me, it's not a race. You know, it's not a race and it's not a competition. I pray that you get there, you know, at your appointed time. But we need to be able to meet people where they're at. And a lot of people are not willing to do that. So I feel like if you are not ready and willing to meet somebody where they're at, then you don't have any business teaching.
Exactly.
You know, and so, you know, I think when we start operating in love a little bit more, you know, and you just find people that operate in love, find other people that are, you know, maybe more consciously aware than you are. Find somebody that's maybe more spiritually aware than you are, and cleave to that person. It's not, and people don't want, this is the thing, I think sometimes people have too much pride and don't want to learn from somebody else. If you know something that I don't know, and I want to know it, let me cleave to you for a little bit. Like, let's be clear about, what I'm here for and my intention, but I'm here to learn. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I know a lot of people don't want to learn from somebody their age, younger than them. I know a lot of men don't want to learn from a woman. I know a lot of women that don't want to learn from a man. It's like, people, and it's like knowledge is so valuable, and you have to have a thirst for knowledge. So our people need to begin to engage in that thirst. Begin to chase after those things. But like I said, I think we need to start treating each other a little more kindly when it comes down to, teaching and learning.
Yeah, definitely. Get that anger, control that anger a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh yeah. So also with where we at as far as Black history, a lot of our people not wanting to learn it, a lot of people not interested in learning it or teaching their kids to learn it. You think that has anything to do with post-traumatic stress syndrome?
Yeah. So, for sure. I think that it's
Actually, post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Yeah. So you want to read the definition?
All right. So Dr. Joy DeGruy, she's an educated author. She stated that when we look at American chattel slavery, we are not talking about a single trauma. We're talking about multiple traumas over lifetimes and over generations. All right. So it differs from post-traumatic stress syndrome, all right, or PTSD. All right, so PTSD results from a single trauma experienced directly or indirectly. And once again, post-traumatic slave syndrome is when we're talking about not a single trauma, but we're talking about multiple traumas over lifetimes and over generations. All right, that's how Dr. Joy DeGruy defines. Yeah.
So I think with, as far as that goes, it's like, so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if I don't know, then I can't be held responsible for it. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it's like we willfully stay ignorant about certain things.
Right.
Because we don't want to have to kind of do the work to maybe correct and reverse the traumas that we have learned. Because I think a lot of the times, we got a question?
No, I was reading the comments.
Oh.
No, you good.
So I think a lot of the times we learn these traumas. So our mothers, our grandmothers may have experienced the direct trauma of, Jim Crow, of segregation, and then if we go even further back, of slavery. And because of that, their behaviors change because of the PTSD that they have experienced. So then we then normalize or think that their behavior, which is a result of the PTSD, is normal. So then we begin to mimic the behavior.
Right. Yep.
So then we have now, it's like everybody has this thing with toxic. Like we have these toxic habits and these toxic behaviors because those are things that we've learned as normal. And I think Black people, unfortunately, in our community, and I think this is in the diaspora as well as on the continent, a lot of times we've just normalized trauma.
Right.
It's just a part of who we are, and we have not gotten to the root of a lot of these issues, so they continue to manifest themselves in different ways. So I think that could definitely, and it's, whenever you learn about the trauma, and even if we even take it back to the family tree thing, if you learn about the trauma that maybe some people in your family experienced, maybe you can have a whole new perspective on why your parents did you the way that they did you. Mm-hmm. Why this auntie don't talk to this auntie, right. And why. So then you begin to understand even the mental health conditions of your own family and why maybe you yourself behave the way that you behave. But then whenever you take it a step further and then you begin to look at the way that your people were treated, on a larger scale, and as a people, you then begin to understand the condition of your people. You begin to understand, like, okay, you take somebody out of their environment, you abuse them, you enslave them for, over 200 years, then you subject them to maltreatment, to abuse, to terrorism.
Right.
Then you take them out of that. Then you subject them to ghettos, and you confine them to these areas. You flood their community with drugs. So then it's like, I think it's like, then you begin to understand, I could understand why somebody would try and escape, poverty by selling drugs or dealing drugs or doing things like that. So then it's not so easy for us to just write off these issues as they're crazy, they brought it on themselves or whatever else. So it's like you're understanding that the reactions that you're getting.
Yeah. So black people basically is they've learned to cope with all of the stress that we've endured over the last couple of generations. What kind of behaviors that you think we've invented that's misinterpreted now as culture?
I think so many.
It is.
I think that even us being our angry outburst, I think a lot of times we have, and I think it's even to the point where it's been glamorized. It's I'm crazy, and like people think that that's cute, and it's like, no, it might be that you have a chemical imbalance, or it might be because you are, you've watched this negative behavior. Now you feel like that's an appropriate way to react to somebody doing something that you don't like.
Yeah, sort of like the angry black woman.
Yeah, the angry
Right.
black woman. I think that sometimes we have a way of we play into those things because of just the learned behavior. It's not that black women don't have a right to be angry. We definitely do.
Right,
For sure. But it's just a matter of sometimes we play into those things because we've learned them over time. Same thing for what are some things that you feel like black men engage in from learned trauma?
So one, like we're always ready to fight. I think that's built in. We have to be always on the go, always ready to scrap in a sense. I know a lot of people aren't like that, but I think a lot of the men are built up that way, especially over the years, to protect their family. That's why we're so protective of our family, of our children, of our daughters, the men of their daughters. It's because of things that happened in the past, especially during the slave time. You know what I'm saying, and pre-emancipation, that even post that a lot of our daughters and our women have been raped, and we stood by. We couldn't do anything. Yeah. And I think that was built in, that we push that to our sons and keep going on. They think that, I mean, it looks as though it's culture, like black man is very protective of his daughter, but there's a reason, like you said, there's a reason behind all that. So I think that's one thing. Yeah.
I think that, and it's like even the way that black men and women deal with each other, as it pertains to, like, you brought up the abuse that black women endured during the slave era, and then even after the abuse that black women endured. So then as a black woman, I'm looking to my man as my protector, my provider, all of that, right. But he can't do that because of the conditions that we're in. So now I build up a certain level of resentment. So then it's like, so then it's kind of like you are giving that, you're teaching your daughter in so many ways that their man can't protect and provide, through those actions, and through your actions of mistrust, through your actions of fear, through, you just you're reacting to it naturally, but because you haven't been treated and talked to anybody or even really identified the trauma yourself, you're just giving that back. And not to mention that there have been studies that are leaning towards, it's not a fact yet from what I was reading, but they're saying that trauma can definitely alter your DNA. Right. And they did this study on people, the descendants of Holocaust survivors. Now, they're not going to tell you that the reason that you are behaving the way that you're behaving is because of trauma that, your family has endured, but they tell the study was done on Holocaust survivors. So it's like, and now imagine, the Holocaust was what 5 years?
It was about that.
Yeah, about 5 years.
Maybe 4 and a half, something like that.
So it's like, so then imagine if 5 years can alter the DNA of their children. Imagine what 250 years of chattel slavery, and then everything that came after it, and then we're just talking about what happened in North and South America, and then in the colonies. So it's like, imagine what that has done. Not to mention the breeding and the interbreeding and it's like, you know, the list goes on.
Right, exactly. So I'm gonna read another quote from Dr. Joy DeGruy. She said, "Black people began to doubt themselves, their experiences, and their worth in society because they've been so invalidated their whole lives in so many ways." I think that kind of goes back to, like I said, with the Eldridge Cleaver was saying, when they put black in front of something, it kind of makes it lesser than what it should be. Like it's not just history; it's Black history.
Yeah.
You know, she's not Miss America; she's Miss Black America. With that being said, kind of invalidate their whole lives, and I think that kind of contributes to post-traumatic stress. Kind of starts it over.
Yeah.
So anybody who doesn't feel those symptoms, now they're getting a new kind of dose of it.
Yeah.
You kind of agree with that? Or no?
Yeah, it's like no matter what I do, I'm never going to be.
Yeah.
It's what you get. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
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 Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry. Can you read the quote one more time for me?
So Black people began to doubt themselves, their experiences, and their worth in society because they have been so invalidated their whole lives in so many ways.
Yeah, and I feel like a good way to combat that again is creating a good sense of self culturally. So whenever you begin to study your history, when your children are brought up in a household where there is ethnic pride, there's a certain level of, like, your chest sticks out a little bit more.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like, for me growing up, and even now, I'm like, it's just some things I just don't care about.
Right.
Like, you know, you can miss me with that. I don't care nothing about being accepted by, I guess, like, even when for instance, if we talk about beauty standards, it's just some things. It's like, now, while I understand they affect us all to some extent, I'm a woman, you know, I experience whatever I experience, but it's just, I don't have a desire to fit a European standard of beauty because of because my daddy was telling me I was a pretty black girl growing up, you know, and because I saw other beautiful black women, I read about other beautiful, strong black women. So it was like, for me, that's not an issue that I had, you know, and that's not something that as an adult now that I concern myself with,
Right.
you know. So because I have a good foundation of ethnic pride and cultural pride, so I feel like whenever you do that, it's just some things that, while they still may affect you to some extent, there's some things that won't, I feel like, corrupt your spirit and have you just so downtrodden that it kind of devastates, I think, a lot of people to know that maybe they won't be accepted by the dominant society, or they may not be perceived as X, Y, or Z, you know.
Right.
When it's like, but you were the end all be all. You were here before anybody. Look at what you have done. Look at what your people have contributed, and look at what before our history was interrupted, and then even after. So whenever you have that level of pride because of knowledge, see, you can't have that kind of pride without knowledge.
Right.
A lot of our people feel like, oh, I'm a proud black woman, I'm a proud black man because my hair is natural, because I wear dashikis, because I, you know, support J. Cole, whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, I have this sense of, and that surface level, that's great. But it's like, you need to know who you are deep down in your DNA. And even a lot of times I talk to people about, we like to celebrate black culture when it's like music or dancing or even art. All of these things that are worthy of celebration. You know, they're all our contributions to mankind, and they're all beautiful. But your intelligence and your spirituality even, see, a lot of us have gotten away from our spirituality because we're just angry that a certain spirituality was forced on us.
Right.
I get it, be angry, but that should make you want to delve deeper into who you were before colonization. So whenever you do all of that, things begin to make sense.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, they definitely, it's when they first wake up, I guess, or when they first start getting conscious, the angry.
Excuse me.
The anger takes them over. That's a start. I mean, whatever wakes you up, whatever makes you more conscious, that's a start. And I think we should build from whatever way someone comes at us. They come at us in an angry way, and criticize me for being in the military. Trying to be conscious at the same time, or come at you for being pro-black, and but you still have white friends and they still understand it. It's just to I guess once we figure them out, I guess, or talk to them more, kind of guide them in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think too, like, I think it's good too to also hear people's grievances.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so why are you angry? Can you tell me? And then why are you angry at me?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I want to know what I did to you to incite this type of reaction or this type of response. So I think it's good for us to hear people's grievances. Let me see where I can meet you where you at. And if not, then you just need to keep it pushing. Because sometimes a lot of our people's anger is misdirected.
Right. Yeah.
And it's misdirected even so to the sense that we begin to traumatize. I said trauma. So we begin to traumatize ourselves even more. You know, because of this misguided anger, because of this, because we don't understand why we're feeling the way that we're feeling, why we have experienced the things that we are experiencing, and why the world treats us the way that the world treats us. See, it's your responsibility as a black man, whatever you are, to learn more about your culture, to seek out that knowledge, and then that way you can see why the world responds to you the way that the world responds to you, so that you can better navigate through the world that you live in. But a lot of us don't want to do that. Any questions? I saw Chancey had said something else.
Say whipping. It's whipping learned behavior.
Is whooping a learned behavior, or the way we treat our kids? As far as the I'm the parent, you're the child mindset. Oh, now look. I was writing about this, y'all. I don't have any children yet, but one of the things that I was looking at as far as like things that I've been reading about is that beating a child is not really something that a lot of ancient African societies really did. I'm not talking about, you know, as of recent, you know, the more recent centuries. I'm talking about farther back. So it's beating a child is not really something that they did. That was something that I believe, after what I have read and even what I have observed, that we definitely learned. And even with white folks, okay, so they beat your kids, but they don't beat their kids. They'll talk to theirs. You know what I mean? Or they'll beat you into submission, but they know how to talk to their children. So it's like, so where did we learn this behavior of just beating the hell out of our kids in order to get them to do what we want them to do? And then what is that telling them? And a lot of people say, well, whoopings kept me from doing this. Whoopings kept... Okay, that's fine. I'm not talking about lickings and spankings and pops here and there. I'm talking about us, because a lot of parents do get carried away. Mm-hmm. And I don't really understand how you can be striking a child, especially if you are upset. And you don't think that it's ever going to escalate out, and you know what I mean, and get out of control. So I'm not saying that it happens all the time, but I think that it's something that we definitely should start to reevaluate why it is that we think putting our hands on our children is an appropriate response to doing certain things. So, but yeah, I definitely believe that that's something that we learned, and we need to start reevaluating why we do that. Because I'm like, that's a whole nother. Like I said, I got a whole little, almost an essay written on that. But yeah, I think that's definitely something we need to start looking into. Why do you beat your children? And does it stop them from really doing it again? Because how many people that, you know what, I need to look into that. How many people that are how many black people that are incarcerated right now got whoopings growing up?
I mean, I think it's all it's really doing is giving them PTSD.
Come on,
it's
traumatizing them to some extent.
It's basically you beating the shit out of them. It's not helping them learn to not spill the Kool-Aid again on the table. It's knowing that when they see spilled Kool-Aid, they have a flashback when they got their ass beat or when they were younger, and that's not cool either.
And even, hold on, I almost lost my train of thought. I just lost it, y'all. But so the trauma. we're traumatizing our kids by beating them.
PTSD.
For sure. And then, now it's like, okay, so who can I hit whenever they make me mad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like now people are doing things that I don't like. So can I hit them too? Is it okay for you know? So it's like where is the line and what's the line? But I think that would be interesting to know, like how many people really were struck often. And I think a lot of times it makes you it desensitizes you, and then it makes you because we don't sit down and talk to our kids. Okay, why did you do that? If I told you not to do it and you did it, why did you do that? So a lot of times you find a lot of grown black folks don't even want to sit down and talk about why they're doing the things that they're doing. And a lot of them can't tell you why they're doing the things that they're doing.
Right. Hell yeah.
And it's because we don't talk to our kids. We just beat them and tell them, you're going to do what I tell you to do. Don't ask me no questions. Just do it. And I think, and that's a learned behavior, because at the end of the day, if I am a slave or an enslaved woman, and my child is doing something that's out of line that could possibly get them beaten by, our slave master, that could make my daughter a victim of rape, stop doing what you're doing. Don't ask me no questions. It's not up for discussion. I see something you don't see, so don't do it anymore. But because we don't know that our parents can see things that we don't see, now we living in different times. So I need for you to explain some things to me, because there's some things that I just don't understand.
Right.
But because nobody explained it to them, they don't know how to explain it to us. So then it's like we keep on, and you find so many people that you will sit down and be like, why are you doing that? I don't know. Okay, well, that's not a good enough reason, So it's like we have these issues with communication. We have these issues with even just identifying within ourselves why we're doing the things we're doing. And I really believe that's because we don't talk to our kids. We don't nurture those things in our children and in ourselves even. Excuse me.
So Reggie, I'm gonna get back to your question in a second, man. But that kind of leads into educating. So self-education. Let's kind of jump into that, just so we kind of stay on the topic, and then we'll jump back into some of the questions I might have missed too.
Okay.
So self-education. You want to kind of explain what's the importance of it with us as a people?
So, being that there's such an agenda to miseducate us, I think that self-education is really the only way that you can thrive in this world as somebody who is just who has pride within themselves, number one. And with their culture, in their culture and in their people as well. Excuse me. So I feel like it's necessary, because if you're waiting for America to educate you on what they did to you, that just doesn't make sense. If you're waiting on the world to educate you on how they have eluded the continent, and enrich themselves, if you're looking for them to do that, then you'll be waiting forever. That's just not going to happen. So if you want to have an understanding about the world and how the world works, you have to be willing to step outside of that and to learn something. It's just like even in finance, if you feel like you're going to graduate high school and know how to do taxes, know how to start a business, that's not likely. You are going to have to self-educate.
Right.
You're going to have to seek something outside of what was on the curriculum for you to do that. That's if you want something extraordinary, if you want something outside of what they're willing to give you. So for me, self-education is necessary. I'm somebody who hasn't, I haven't finished school. I'm not in school right now, but so I'm somebody who dropped out. Sometimes I'm like, I definitely want to go back. It seems like it's never the right time for me.
Right.
But I'm somebody who is constantly chasing knowledge. I'm somebody who's constantly learning something.
Right.
And even whenever I'm slacking off, I'm getting on to myself like, hey, So for me, I don't know. I feel like knowledge is just it's necessary for you to step outside of what they gave you. If you want something greater.
So I'm thinking about America. Like I know a lot of people, they get mad at like the school systems in America for not teaching a lot of Black history or teaching any kind of history except for their European history that
Yeah.
led to the America is today. I kind of look at I don't get angry. So what I do is I look at it as, why would they? Why
Yeah.
would they teach that we were such powerful people in Africa? Why would they teach that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying that their history starts out in Europe. They come over here. They get colonized. They conquer. They kill off the natives, and they build up a world using us as
Right.
as for slave labor. Why would they teach that? Why would they teach
Exactly.
the bad stuff? They're trying to empower their children. They're trying
Yeah.
to educate them to make them powerful, more psychologically stronger.
Yeah.
And ready for the world that's out there. Why would they teach us that?
Right.
So that's one, I think, is one of the important reasons why self education is definitely needed.
Yeah.
Because they're not gonna teach us all that we need to know to
Right.
empower us, to make us stronger and make us take over the country. They're not
Yeah.
gonna do that. They're gonna tell us just a little bit to make us function.
Yeah.
Just give us a little bit of gas to keep us going.
For sure.
And then that's all they give us. They give us Martin Luther King because what I'm saying, he was what do you call it?
They perceived
Yeah.
as to be, I guess, more passive.
Yeah.
And then they try
exactly.
and tell you who your hero should be.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we're not gonna get into that.
Exactly.
But I think that so a lot of black people love saying this is spiritual warfare and we are fighting against the principalities and it is not just the physical. So it's like, okay, so if you know this is war, then why would you expect somebody that has conquered your people essentially
Exactly.
to educate you about your history?
Yeah.
Why would you expect them to educate you, to give you proper health care, to make sure that you know how to grow your own food, to hunt your own food? Why would you expect them to do that?
And if they are doing that, why would you expect them to tell you the exact truth? You know what I'm saying? They're
Exactly.
not telling
They're not
you
going to equip you with
yeah.
anything to overthrow what they
Yeah.
have. And this is my thing, like you say, I don't even get angry because you understand the world that you live in and the society that you live in. So it's like, if it makes you, it can be frustrating, but let that inspire you to learn something yourself and then to sow that into your child and into your children. That way they can know who they were and who they are. And that's why it's like, I just so love black homeschoolers.
Right.
And black
Yeah.
institutions. I love that because I'm like, okay, now you don't have to worry about, even at the school that I work for, I had came in early October and it was Columbus stuff up. I was like, excuse me,
Hell
like,
yeah.
what's going on? So I'm like, I'm gonna miss this lesson, like, so it's like, it's things like that, and to see there are black children there are, white children there are people who are of Hispanic heritage there, which are basically indigenous Americans,
Right. Yeah,
that were
exactly.
colonized by Spaniards. So it's like, it's all these, and the curriculum is not going to consider your feelings. They didn't consider your ancestors' feelings. They didn't consider their lives. So why would we expect anybody that, why would you expect somebody that has been robbing you to tell you, hey, by the way,
Yeah.
like, it doesn't make sense. So I think we need to definitely, we have to start taking, I feel like, some accountability of ourselves. And it's like, yes, you have been victimized. Like, we love to tell people, don't be a victim. Okay. So yes, our people have been victimized. The continent has been victimized. Even the native and the indigenous people in the America have been victimized. But it is up to you to decide, who do I want to be? What do I want to know? How do I want to change my community, change my family, change my life for the better? What can I know? What can I learn? What can I teach? So we have to take that responsibility and say, you know what, I want better, so I'm going to do better, point blank, period.
Right.
And stop expecting somebody that has conquered you to educate. That makes no sense. Why would you expect?
I think it comes back down to so like we were talking about earlier. So if you don't know how to educate your children, how to educate yourselves, that's when you got to start finding those mentors, or talking to more people, talking to more of your people. I know a lot of people, they go to the opposite race or other race, I say opposite, but other races in the country trying to figure out how to make us better and how to educate us, how to learn how to self-educate, which is, I mean, they might have an idea from talking to other people, but I think like I said, if you see someone like me or Miss Gabrielle right here out in the streets, we're more than likely approachable, and you can start talking to people about certain things. Just kind of get an idea to kind of guide you in the right direction. And most of us, like most black people I meet out in the world, they're willing to talk to you and kind of guide you and kind of discuss some things with you. You will run into those hoteps.
All the time. All the time.
Don't let it deter you from
Yeah,
the
from
the
learning.
journey. Yeah.
And even it's so much information online, y'all. It's so many different things, and I can post sources and things like that after the fact. But there's so many different people that you can, lecturers and different things like that. So it's like, and if you don't like the book, get the audio book. You know.
So Chancey has a very valid question. She said, "Do you think that people choose not to self-educate because any knowledge outside of the school system is considered to be valid?"
Oh yes, girl. Absolutely. I think because we have put, I guess, like the European standard, of education kind of on a pedestal, that we don't really honor anything, I guess, outside of the curriculum. Even though it's like, and it's crazy because you go to these schools and they'll teach you how to do a research paper. They'll teach you how to do your own research and all of these different things.
Right.
So it's like you have the skills and you can go outside of that, go to the library, get on Google, you know how to do your bibliographies and everything else to list your sources and to find other sources. But we don't want to do it because then we don't want to maybe be labeled as, like we were talking about, being labeled as like an Afrocentrist. So then your points are just dismissed and you're not considered a real scholar or a real intellectual mind, for sure. So I think that sometimes people do that out of fear, but in the same breath, it's like, hey, what you want to do? Do you want to know about yourself? Do you want to have knowledge of self, or don't you? Because it's some things that will, even as I study more, and especially I feel like because I am a spiritual person, as I study more things on the spiritual side, and I begin to understand and know and acknowledge that you cannot have science in ancient Africa without spirituality.
Right.
So they went hand in hand. And then whenever you look at westernized science, you see that they separate. They don't even really believe you have a spirit or a soul, and that was unheard of. And even not just in ancient African history, but in other ancient indigenous cultures and histories. So it's like, it's those things. So it's like you begin to research those things. So you begin to learn and see what resonates even with your spirit. And you're like, ooh, this might sound a little crazy. So it does, I think, sometimes create that element of fear of somebody maybe saying or feeling like what you're saying and contributing is invalid or is kind of Afrocentric or kind of off the wall. But you just have to, that's why you continue to study and you continue to build your credibility. And you, again, meet people where they're at. You don't just meet somebody up the street that's like, hey, I'm not really familiar with too much of anything. And then you just, you dumping everything on them.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, for sure.
When people come talking to me about where they should start or ask me a question, and I'm a big reader. I do realize a lot of people, they not interested in reading like that, but I always like to start them off with the Willie Lynch letter and the Making of a Slave. It's so short. It's like a 20-minute read, and I always push that to people. I usually carry it around with me, and I make people sit down and read it while they're sitting right here with me.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of lost my train of thought too. But I do got some quotes. So one and I read a lot of shit. So one quote I got, I said, "Don't wait for it. Pick yourself up. Teach yourself." So America is not going to teach you our history, our culture, or anything that would get us to want to be proud or to be who we are. So that's definitely a good quote. I might use that in an email signature block or something. Another one, guys, teach yourself by reading books, finding mentors, learning from your passion for pursuit of happiness. Something that I kind of been hitting on the whole time we're talking. Um, and one more, the last one I liked is learning is not done to you. Learning is something you choose to do.
I like that.
So,
I like that.
yeah. So that's something that you choose to do. If you want to learn how to, or you want to learn about your culture and your history, that's when you're gonna have to go out there and do it. Start out small. I think I came. I would say I was always kind of woke. The eye was open, or kind of open. You know,
It was blinking.
it was blinking. You know, it had a flashlight. It was in the dark, and you know the flashlight turned on every once in a while. But and I didn't really get into learning about a lot of stuff until I was maybe in my 30s. I'm still in my 30s, by the way.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, okay.
But I started out. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and that kind of guided me in which direction I wanted to go. I know. You know, I read.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah. And I kind of went the route of I learned more about the Black Panthers, and I'm really into them. I'm really into Dr. Huey P. Newton. I read a couple of his books already, and it kind of guided me that way. I know a lot of people might go the opposite way. A lot of people might go Garvey way.
Yeah.
You know, when they read all about Malcolm X.
Right.
Is that where you went?
Yeah.
So we kind of did this, but it started out. We started out this
Right.
kind of same place.
Yeah.
And that's the first book I always tell people to read. And I always tell people too, like you'll hear Denzel's voice if you already seen the movie when you read it. But yeah.
We just to become, I guess, enthusiastic about our history, we have to acknowledge many of the different points of our history. We can't just find pride in only one aspect of it, or only want to showcase and talk about one aspect of it. It's not fair to our ancestors. It's not fair to ourselves. So I think that we need to begin doing that.
Exactly.
And remembering that.
What else you got? I'm gonna jump into there's a
Go ahead.
question
So
that
go
was
ahead.
kind of
Yeah,
was kind of
I
off
was
subject.
like, go ahead.
All right, so Reggie Underdog is like, what is your anti-racism solution?
Boy, look. Everybody minding their business. No. That's something I feel like the anti-racist. What is anti-racism? So, is he still on? Because I want to know what he. I mean, black people didn't invent racism, so that's not really. That's something that.
All right, go ahead.
Is that's an invention by another race of people, and that's something that they need to kind of rectify and get under wraps themselves. That is like a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, that's why I'll let to the end.
Child. But yeah, and I think sometimes we need to be more concerned with how we treat and love ourselves. It's like, yes, we have to remember like the society that we live in and how we move, and how other people respond to us and things like that. But for sure, I think we need to start learning to love our black selves first. Because to be quite frank, I don't really care too much about how anybody outside, unless I'm having certain dealings. You know, I work for a nonprofit. So it's like I get it. You have to deal with other people, and that's fine. Show love wherever. But it's like we need to get comfortable with making sure that you feel love from me as a black man, as a black woman, and that I'm covering you there. Before I deal with anybody else, I need to make sure I can love you right.
All right, Instagram gave me a minute and 10 seconds left.
Okay, so Insta said, get the H off of here.
All
I've
right.
been trying not to cuss. I think my mom is watching.
All right, so I'm Dabo Soso Zulu. This is Miss Gabrielle Dawn. Y'all can follow her. What's your Instagram?
Dawn.
Okay.
Dawn _ a new queen. ANU. And then for everybody on his IG, you can join our private Facebook group, A New Chosen Image. That's ANU Chosen Image, traditional spelling.
All right. So y'all see that, right? I went the Black Panther way. She went the Marcus Garvey way.
Yeah.
You got the best of both worlds. Y'all follow her, follow me. We'll see what we got going on. We'll have another live discussion. We'll push it out to y'all. Whenever we gotta talk about this shit afterwards, you know. and see how it went. We'll look back at the video and talk shit and
Ciao, ciao. Tschüss.
peace.
Okay, a new chosen image.